everyone, it's Mostly Casual Commander. I'm BK, and today's game has Battle for Baldur's Gate commanders. Kyle is playing Myrkul, looking for as much value as possible off of enchantments and big X spells to close out the game. I'm playing Raggadragga, Gorgut's boss, a Gruul beatdown deck featuring a ton of mana dorks. Busterkins has Elminster in the command zone, looking to make a ton of 1/1 blue fairy dragon creature tokens and fly over his opponents. And we have Kovacs playing Miirym Sentinel Worm, trying to make as many copies of big bad scary dragons as possible. So Kyle will kick us off, not you, Busterkins. An Undergrowth Stadium will hit his battlefield, followed by a Soul Ring. Then he'll pass the turn over to me. I'll play Forest as my land for turn, and then a Birds of Paradise, or a Bop. Over to Busterkins, he will play a Plains as his land, and he'll say go over to Kovacs. He'll drop a Mountain, and then he'll pass the turn over to Kyle. On to turn 2, Kyle draws and plays a Swamp as his land for turn, and as a follow-up, he'll cast Read the Bones. So he will scry 2, then he'll draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Classic Kyle drawing cards. Afterwards, he'll cast Boreal Druid, a mana dork, tapping for 1 colorless. Then passes the turn over to me, I play a Forest, and after that I pass over to Busterkins. He'll draw and play an Island as his land, then he'll cast one of the coolest starfish in the game, Sigiled Starfish, allowing him to scry at instant speed. He passes over to Kovacs, who plays Rootbound Crag, and then he passes over to Kyle. He'll draw and play Flooded Strand, so he'll sack that, pay 1 life, and go and find a Temple Garden, which he will have enter the battlefield untapped, taking 2 more life. He'll shuffle up and then cast Night's Whisper, so he will draw 2 more cards and lose 2 more life. Following that, he casts Harmonize, drawing 3 more cards. Got a lot of card draw going on there, Kyle. That's weird. Then he'll pass over to me. I'll play Cinderglade, which will come in untapped, and I'll be able to cast my commander, Raggadragga, Gorgut's boss. Again, giving my mana dorks +2/+2, and rewarding me for playing big spells. Busterkins dropped an island and said go. Kovacs plays a forest, and casts Carnelian Orb of Dragonkind. Not only is it a mana rock, but it can also give his Dargans haste. Kyle plays Overgrown Tomb, taking 2 more life. Then he casts his commander, Myrkul, Lord of Bones. And with Myrkul out, Kyle's dying creatures can return to the battlefield as an enchantment. I play a forest as my land, and then I cast Leyline of Abundance for full rip. Too bad it wasn't in my opening hand, am I right? And with that, I go to combat at Kyle and Kovacs, and when I move to attack, Raggadragga's triggered ability hit the stack and untapped my Birds of Paradise. On my end step, Busterkins activates his Sigiled Starfish, scrying 1, and then on his upkeep, he will do it again. Then he'll draw for turn, play an island as his land, and he'll have to say go over to Kovacs, who plays an island as his land, followed by Storm the Vault. This will generate him some treasures when his creatures deal combat damage, and it can flip over for some pretty big mana generation later. Kyle plays Tendershoot Dryad on his turn, and Busterkins says Arcane Denial, so he'll counter Tendershoot Dryad, and they could both draw cards in the next upkeep. He then plays Blooming Marsh, entering the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, the one that will attack Busterkins for 7.
Yeah, that 7? Jesus Christ.
You know what they say, Busterkins. You mess with the Myrkul, you get the horns. I don't know. On to my turn, I play Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and then I move right into combat. Again, Raggadragga's trigger will go on the stack, untapping my Birds of Paradise. I deal some damage to my opponents, and I get to draw a couple of cards off of Toski. I then play Mossfire Valley as my land for turn, and I pass over to Busterkins. He drops another island. He is rich with blue mana. Then he casts Elminster, so he can potentially reduce the cost of some of his spells. He could draw a card and scry, as well as make some dragons. Then he scries with his Sigil Starfish, and then he -3s Elminster, revealing Behold the Multiverse, exiling it, but making 4 1/1 Dargans that have flying. And they're all really lined up very nicely. Over to Kovacs, he plays Cinderglade as his land, and casts his commander, Miirym, Sentinel Worm. It also gains haste because he used his Carnelian Orb of Dragonkind. So he moves to combat at me with his Big Scary Dragon. When it deals combat damage, he'll make a treasure token. He passes the turn to Kyle. He plays a Swamp as his land for turn, and then casts Arcane Signet as well. He'll then use that for the 2nd white mana he needed to cast Elish Norn.
Why?
I agree with Busterkins, Kyle. Why? Toski and those 1/1 dragons die, but thanks to Raggadragga, my Birds of Paradise remains. Kyle then moves to combat, killing Elminster and dealing me some more combat damage. Onto my turn, I cast Marwyn, the Nurturer. And again, thanks to Raggadragga, Elish Norn's static ability is blanked. I then cast Find Horn Elves. This triggers Marwyn, getting a +1/+1 counter on her. I move to combat over at Kovacs with my commander, dealing him a couple of points of commander damage. Over to Busterkins, he casts Opt at sorcery speed, so he will scry one, and then he'll draw one card as well. Then he plays another island as his land for turn. Then he casts Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, allowing more scrying and drawing. He could bounce a thing. Then he can get an emblem, but whoever gets emblems off their planeswalkers in EDH, if you have, let us know in the comments. We'd like to hear about that, because we never do. Over to Kovacs, he plays Hinterland Harbor as his land for turn, and then he'll cast Hellkite Tyrant. And when it enters the battlefield, Miirym will trigger, and getting him a copy of Hellkite Tyrant. He then moves to combat with his hasty one as well as Miirym, dealing some damage to Kyle and myself. Hellkite's like, yo Kyle, your artifacts are mine. Kovacs also gains 2 treasures off Storm the Vault, and on the end step, Storm the Vault flips over and turns into Vault of Catlacan. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Also, Kovacs will flip that over in just a minute. He forgot to do it right away. Canopy Vista hits Kyle's board, then he casts Blood for Bones, so he will sacrifice a creature, get a thing back from the graveyard to the battlefield, and then something else from the graveyard to his hand. So Boreal Druid is sacrificed, comes back as an enchantment, then he gets Tendershoot Dryad from his graveyard, as well as Toski back to his hand. He then does an Ascend check with Tendershoot Dryad, getting the city's blessing. Then he casts Toski, Bearer of Secrets, in that really cool showcase artwork. He doesn't even look like a squirrel, he looks like a monster, not a squirrel at all. So Kyle moves to combat at Kovacs and myself. Before blocks are declared, Kovacs casts Displace, flickering his commander Miirym as well as his Hellkite Tyrant. And when those both enter the battlefield, Miirym will still see Hellkite coming in, making another copy of Hellkite. Kovacs then uses both of them to block Myrkul, and then I take damage off of Elish Norn. So Kyle will draw 1 card off of Toski, and then passes the turn. On my upkeep, Tendershoot Dryad makes 1 Saproling. I draw for turn and play Kamal, Heart of Krosa, who says, on my attack, all my creatures get Overrun, gaining +3/+3 and Trample. He also says I can make my lands into dudes, but nah.
I like this at Kyle.
We'll go like this again.
Before anything else, we'll go like this.
So I untap all my mana dorks when I attack, and Kyle lines up his blocks. Just like that. But before damage is dealt, I start tapping my mana dorks and activating Leyline of Abundance, getting +1 counters on my stuff. So then Kyle will take a whole bunch of combat damage, dropping him down to 5. Then on my end step, Busterkins activates his Starfish, scrying 1. On his upkeep, Kyle gets a Saproling, and then Busterkins activates Jace, scrying 1, as well as drawing another card. After that, Busterkins plays an island, again, as his land, and then he casts his commander, Elminster. So again, having access to some card draw, some scrying, and making dragons. So here he will activate its +2 ability, he drew a card, and he scries 2 to the bottom. Then he passes the turn over to Kovacs, Kyle gets another Saproling, Kovacs plays Coat of Arms, pumping all creatures that share creature types. Then he'll cast Traverse the Outlands, he'll get a handful of basic lands to the battlefield tapped, but to save time before he searches his library, he moves to combat and knocks Kyle out of the game. So Kyle's stolen artifacts will ninja vanish in just a moment. But on my turn I cast End-Raze Forerunners, triggering Raggadragga, so that triggered ability will untap Marwyn and give her +7/+7 until the end of my turn. Kovacs says he has a response with Stubborn Denial, but we're like, yo, that says target non-creature spell is countered. So we're like, wait a minute, we need Meatball to react to this.
Get off the table, Meatball.
So End-Raze will enter the battlefield, giving my things +2/+2 Vigilance and Trample. Kamal will trigger when I move to combat, as well as Raggadragga. And in response to Raggadragga's triggered ability hitting the stack, I tap my mana dorks, produce a ton of mana, and then I activate Leyline of Abundance 2 times, and I'll still have 6 floating green mana left over. So each one of my creatures will get 2 +1/+1 counters. Then Raggadragga's triggered ability will resolve, untapping my mana dorks. And then before blocks are declared, I'll tap them again, generating oodles of mana. I'll activate Leyline of Abundance 3 more times, putting 3 additional +1/+1 counters on all of my stuff. And with that, I'll deal enough combat damage to my opponents to win the game. Yay! So what did you guys think of that game featuring 4 new commanders from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate? Let us know what you thought about that in the comments. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, thank you for watching.